Hi, this is Rose, and this is the Sovereign Soul, where I talk about liberation of the soul in the body and in this life, and out the body and past this life, so in the afterlife or the spiritual realm as well. Um, I am gonna tackle a few subjects of what I get asked really often within the work I do. I am an intuitive energy healer and I've been doing this professionally for 9 years now. And I communicate directly with the soul. And in working this way, not quite often, I have noticed that we all have a different story. We've all had a different life experience, but the way in which that plays out is the same. We have the same programs. You can call them the ego program or the pain body program, but it all plays out only in a handful of ways. Literally, like we have a program running, and that program has only been programmed to run a certain amount of ways. So, in that, it's been quite an interesting journey because human beings then carry, whether it's an insecurity or a fear, those are only going to play out in a certain amount of ways. So a question that I often get where my clients struggle is dealing with other people's unconsciousness. So when somebody just doesn't see the world the way you do, and sometimes they see it in a way that seems to you perhaps completely illogical or just downright stupid, is quite often the word I see used. So I think the reason why this happens is, first of all, I don't think we've completely and entirely made friends with ourselves and the way in which we function and our own ego. So the world itself is a reflection outside. The outside world is a reflection of your inside world. And if you are being triggered by anything going on outside of you, I would have to say that that is a great big indicator that you have not made friends with that thing inside of you. So, how do you make friends with things like that? Because sometimes people do dumbass things. Look at the world we live in. We still have war. People are starving. People are being abused. People don't have homes. The dumbassness of the planet is very, very huge. It's rife, in fact. So, everything in the world works on a microcosm and a macrocosm. It works on the microcosm is how you relate to it inside yourself, your actual reactions and responses to things, and your relationship to everything inside you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically, and physically in yourself. And the macrocosm starts becoming everything outside of that. So the outside reflection, your relationship to that outside reflection. So whether that outside reflection is to somebody or someone immediately in your sphere, or if it goes further to perhaps a community thing, or maybe it goes further out to a societal thing, and then perhaps into a political thing in your country, and then perhaps it could be to a global condition, and then still further out into a spiritual realm, and then even past that when the consciousness is no longer in the body, and then how you relate to that outside of you. So macrocosm is everything outside of you expanding, microcosm is everything inside of you. So that being said, the way we relate to other people will always be a reflection of how we are relating to ourselves. So if we are impatient with the parts of ourselves that are fast asleep and the parts of ourselves that are unconscious, well, then you're going to be judgmental and not be friends with those aspects of other people. And it really is as simple as that, yet as complex as that. Because the first thing we want to do if something has triggered us, or something is upsetting us, or something is annoying us, is we want to believe that it's something outside of us. That's the ego. Ego doesn't take responsibility. Ego likes to be the victim to everything, and then justified in its behavior, which is out of alignment with loving behavior towards itself or towards ourself, the being, the consciousness, the divinity within us. The ego always wants to win, and those programs that run within the ego have been supporting us. They're fear-based. They will generally be unconscious, asleep patterns, because we're not thinking before we're behaving. We're just responding. And because that behavior in somebody else created us to be frustrated, we think it must be that person. When in truth, that frustration was in you already. You should own your frustration. You should observe your frustration. You should understand why it's there. Sometimes you're frustrated depending on the relationship and the person that you're dealing with. And sometimes it's because you're frustrated because perhaps you need to set a boundary and you're not setting that boundary yet. You will be upset with that person. And sometimes, and most of the time, it's generally because of an expectation that you have decided, something like behavior you think that person should be able to display, and then you're not getting that behavior displayed. And then you get frustrated with the person because of an expectation you have of them. And in those two things, so for example, if it's got to do with boundary setting or expectations, if those things are not met, then your frustration is with the person, and when in truth it should be with yourself. I think that when we can understand somebody fully for who they are and how they behave and how they see the world, we're loving that person, we're accepting them. If we don't need them to be different, and we certainly don't place our happiness on how they behave and how they respond, because that is the if we can say, the epitome of what oh, my head's gone blank, codependency becomes. We need that person to behave in a certain way for us to be happy. So how to deal with unconscious people around you is really got to do with how you deal with yourself, and how willing are you to be self-aware enough to understand that the feelings that you are having and the frustrations that you are having are your own, and actually are not because of that person. That person has only but reflected something that already exists within you. And again, I couldn't possibly sit here and tell you how to relate to every person based on where that relationship is, because every relationship is different. It might be your child, it might be your partner, it might be a business partner, it might be a stranger, it might be a family member, a parent, a sibling, auntie and uncle, it could be just an acquaintance, your boss. All of these different relationships. But it's important to remember that your response to a relationship shouldn't be based on who that person is in your life to you. It should be based on who you are to you, and therefore not making yourself a victim to somebody else's behavior and unconsciousness, because essentially all that is doing is reflecting your own unconsciousness to general human behavior and general egoic behavior and general ego patterns. If you are missing it in yourself, or perhaps just not accepting it, quite often that's a lot of the time people are in denial about themselves and their behavior. And when a person is in denial of their behavior, then they just don't want to see the truth. It's easier to blame somebody else rather than take responsibility for themselves. But the whole point of being sovereign is to be able to be completely and entirely self-aware with complete and total personal responsibility. You want to lose the victim. You want to know that you have free choices in how you behave, and you also don't want to give people and circumstances and things around you power over you. And I believe we give that when we are being a victim to that circumstance, and we're being a victim when we are resisting it, when we're pushing it away, when we're blaming it on something outside of ourselves, and then feeling justified in our reaction to it because we don't want to look at ourselves. It's all that person's fault. And the only way to get past that is to go, okay, well, maybe it's just nobody's fault, and that's just my reaction, and this person is showing me something.